I collapsed into the vinyl chair beside his bed, the room thick with the scent of antiseptic and wilting lilies from some well-meaning nurse. His face, pale against the crisp sheets, was the same one that had first caught my eye 5 years ago in that cramped Capitol Hill bar. Strong lines, olive skin kissed by Mediterranean roots, dark hair tousled like he'd just run his hands through it in frustration over a flawed design. But those eyes, when they fluttered open hours later, didn't find mine with the familiar spark. They scanned the room, confused, landing on me like I was a stranger in a suit. "Spencer," the nurse prompted gently, her voice a lifeline in the fog. I leaned forward, heart pounding against my ribs like it wanted to escape. "Elias, it's me. Spencer. You're Spencer." My words hung there, fragile as the foredrip feeding into his arm. He blinked, slow and deliberate, his brow furrowing in that way that used to mean he was sketching out a solution to some impossible build. "I'm sorry. Do I know you?" His voice was hoarse, scraped raw from the tube they'd pulled out, but it sliced deeper than any scalpel. 5 years of mornings where he'd traced the curve of my shoulder with his architect's precision, of arguments over blueprints that dissolved into laughter against the kitchen counter, of quiet confessions under the relentless Seattle drizzle. All of it gone. Erased like a line redrawn on drafting paper. The doctor explained it later, in the hallway lined with faded posters about hand-washing and hope. Retrograde amnesia, selective but profound, triggered by the head trauma. Elias remembered his childhood in the rainy suburbs of Tacoma, the sting of his father's disapproval over pursuing architecture instead of engineering, the taste of his Nana's marinara simmering on Sundays. He recalled the firm in Belltown where he'd clawed his way to lead designer, the sleek lines of condos rising like glass sentinels against the Puget Sound. But me? A void. A blank space where our love should have been etched in permanence. I drove home that night through sheets of rain that turned the city into a watercolor smear, the wipers slapping rhythmically like a metronome counting out the beats of what we'd lost. My apartment in Fremont, the one we'd filled with mid-century modern pieces scavenged from estate sales and his endless sketches pinned to every wall, felt like a museum of ghosts. The troll sculpture under the bridge loomed in my headlights, its concrete grin mocking the ache blooming in my chest. How do you grieve someone who's still breathing, still laughing at the nurse's jokes, but looks at you like you're a new client pitching a flawed proposal? Sleep evaded me, chased away by replays of the accident report I'd begged for. A subcontractor's corner cutting, a beam overloaded by 2 tons of rebar, Elias shouting warnings from the scaffolding before the world tilted and fell. I paced the living room, bare feet cold on the hardwood he'd sanded himself, picking up his favorite mug, chipped blue porcelain from a trip to Portland, and setting it down again, afraid it might shatter like everything else. By dawn, the sky lightened to a bruised gray, and I forced myself back to the hospital, armed with coffee from the corner stand where we'd shared our first awkward date. Black, 2 sugars, just how he liked it. He was sitting up when I arrived, flipping through a magazine with detached interest, his bandaged head making him look younger, more vulnerable than the man who'd once hoisted me onto his drafting table after a late-night deadline. "Hey," I said, sliding the cup onto his tray table. He glanced up, polite curiosity in his eyes. "Thanks. You're the friend who came last night." The word friend landed like gravel in my throat. I swallowed it down, forcing a smile that felt like cracking clay. "Yeah, Spencer Hayes. We work in the same circles. Your firm did the redesign for my agency's lobby last year." He nodded, sipping the coffee with a small hum of approval. "Good memory on the sugars. So, what do you do, Spencer?" What did I do? For 5 years, I'd been the one who pulled him from all-nighters with greasy diner runs, the one who held him through the panic attacks when a project tanked, the one who whispered, "I love you," into the curve of his neck as the ferry cut through the sound at sunset. Now, I was rebuilding from scratch, word by careful word. Advertising. Creative director at Cascade Media. We specialize in tech startups, sleek pitches, viral campaigns. I sat on the edge of the chair, careful not to crowd him, my knee inches from his under the blanket. The air between us hummed with absence, a silence that screamed louder than any argument we'd ever had. He tilted his head, studying me with that architect's gaze, the one that could dissect a skyline's flaws in seconds. You seem familiar, like a face from a dream I can't quite place. Hope flickered, fragile as a match in the wind. Maybe it's the universe's way of saying we should grab dinner sometime. Catch up. His laugh was soft, genuine. The sound I'd fallen for in that bar on a whim of a Tuesday. Dinner sounds good. Once I'm out of here. We talked then, haltingly at first, about the firm's latest bid on an eco-residential tower in South Lake Union, about my campaign for a sustainable fashion line that had gone sideways in testing. He gestured with his good hand, sketching invisible lines in the air, his passion undimmed by the fog in his mind. I mirrored him, leaning in, letting the rhythm of conversation pull us closer, even as my heart twisted with the lie of it all. Discharge came 2 days later, a cascade of prescriptions and follow-ups, and I offered to drive him home to his queen and row house, the one he'd designed himself, all clean angles and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Olympics. He accepted with a shrug, claiming an Uber would be fine, but I insisted, citing old friend solidarity. The drive wound through slick streets, evergreens bowing under the weight of water, the radio murmuring indie folk that we'd once danced to in the kitchen. He stared out the window, fingers drumming the armrest, lost in thought. You know, Spencer, he said suddenly, turning to me, there's something about you, like unfinished business. My grip tightened on the wheel. Unfinished? It was a lifetime half erased. But I nodded, voice steady. Tell me about it. We've got time. Inside, the house was a time capsule. Our photos on the mantle, hikes in the Cascades, a spontaneous road trip to the Oregon coast, stared back accusingly. He wandered the rooms like a tourist, touching furniture with vague recognition, pausing at the king bed where we'd carved out so many stolen hours. This place, is mine, right? Feels right. It is, I said, throat tight, and it's got room for more stories. That night, as he slept in the guest room I'd hastily prepared, I sat on the deck with a beer, the city lights smearing into constellations below. 5 years, built line by line, now a foundation cracked. But architects rebuild, don't they? And lovers improvise. The weeks blurred into a tentative routine. I'd drop by after work, bringing groceries or blueprints from his office that his assistant, Mia, a sharp-witted queer woman with a pixie cut and zero patience for bullshit, had salvaged. We'd cook together, him chopping onions with deliberate focus, me stirring sauces while stealing glances at the way his forearms flexed, veins mapping paths I once knew by heart. One evening, as fog rolled in from the Sound, we sat on the couch with takeout pad thai, the TV flickering some forgettable drama. His head lolled against my shoulder midway through, exhaustion from PT sessions pulling him under. I froze, breath shallow, the weight of him familiar yet foreign. When he stirred, murmuring something incoherent, I shifted away, heart racing like I'd been caught trespassing. Sorry, he mumbled, eyes half open. You smell like home. The words undid me. I fled to the kitchen under pretense of refills, gripping the counter until my fingers ached, tears hot and silent. Home. If only he knew how we turned this house into one, brick by laughing brick. But cracks showed elsewhere. His ex, Jordan, a venture capitalist with a jawline like chiseled marble and a history of leaving bruises on hearts, started calling, concerned about Elias's recovery. I'd answer when Elias was in the shower, voice clipped. He's resting. Try again later. Jordan's laugh was oil slick. Tell him I miss our weekends in the San Juans. We had fun, didn't we? Fun. Is that what he called the nights Elias came home hollow-eyed, nursing wounds Jordan dismissed as drama? I'd pieced him back together then, without a map, just instinct and endless patience. Now, the thought of Jordan circling like a shark made my blood boil. Elias noticed the tension one afternoon, as we walked the market at Pike Place, the air thick with fish and flowers. You don't like Jordan, do you? I hesitated, salmon tumbling in the vendor's hands nearby. He's Complicated. You deserve better. He bumped my shoulder, playful. Says the guy who's turning into my personal chauffeur and chef. Laughter bubbled up, easing the knot in my chest. Guilty. But seriously, Elias, trust your gut. That night, alone in my apartment, I pulled out the box from under the bed. Letters we'd written during his residency in Chicago, ticket stubs from our first Mariners game, a sketch he'd drawn of us intertwined, bodies a study in negative space. I traced the lines, memorizing what he'd forgotten, vowing to redraw us, stroke by careful stroke. Yet doubt crept in like the tide. What if this new Elias, the one piecing himself together without me in the frame, didn't need the old story? What if love, once built, couldn't withstand the wrecking ball? The first real fracture came on a crisp October morning, leaves turning the streets of Queen and into a blaze of amber and rust. I'd arrived early with lattes from Le Panier, the kind with cardamom that he used to tease me for loving, and found him at the drafting table in his study, surrounded by yellowed pages of half-remembered projects. His fingers smudged graphite across paper, creating angular forms that evoked the Space Needle's graceful curve, but twisted into something sharper, more jagged. "You're up early," I said, setting the cups down, the steam curling like question marks. He didn't look up, brow furrowed in concentration. Dreams, fragments, buildings collapsing, then rebuilding wrong. His voice carried an edge, the kind that used to signal a breakthrough, but now laced with frustration. I pulled up a stool beside him, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body, a reminder of winters spent huddled under quilts. "Tell me about it. Maybe talking shakes it loose." He exhaled, rubbing his temple where the scar hid under his hairline. "It's you. In the dreams. But not, right? We're on a site, rain pouring, and you're handing me tools, but your face keeps shifting. Like I'm designing from memory, but the scale's off." My pulse quickened, a mix of terror and thrill, me surfacing in his subconscious like rebar through concrete. "Scales everything in architecture, right? Adjust the lines." He turned then, eyes locking on mine, dark and searching. For a moment, the room narrowed to just us, the air charged with possibility. His hand brushed mine on the table, accidental yet electric, sending a jolt straight to my core. I held my breath, willing him to remember the way those hands had mapped my skin in the dark. But he pulled back, clearing his throat. "Yeah, adjust." The moment shattered, and he flipped the sketch over, starting fresh. We spent the day wandering Discovery Park, the paths crunching underfoot, salt air whipping off the sound. He walked with a slight limp from the ankle fracture, but his stride was gaining confidence, mirroring the way he'd begun reclaiming his routine, jogging the waterfront at dawn, sketching over coffee at Bauhaus. I pointed out the lighthouse, its beam cutting through the mist, and he launched into a monologue about retrofitting it for climate resilience, words tumbling fast and fervent. "You're brilliant when you get like this," I said, unable to hold it in, the praise slipping out like sunlight through clouds. He paused, wind tousling his hair. "Coming from you means something." There it was again, that flicker, a blueprint half revealed. Back home, as dusk painted the windows violet, Jordan texted Elias. "Dinner tomorrow? Miss your take on the new waterfront development." I saw it light up his phone on the counter while I plated salmon from the market. He noticed my glance. "Old colleague. Harmless. Harmless." The word tasted bitter. I set the plates down harder than intended. "Jordan's the reason you swore off VCs after that Napa deal went south." His eyes narrowed, piecing it together. "We dated. Briefly. Before the accident." Briefly. Laughter escaped me, hollow. 2 years of toxicity, Elias. He cheated with his associate, gaslit you into thinking it was your fault for working too much. You walked away stronger, but it wrecked you. Silence stretched, heavy as fog. He sank onto the barstool, fork forgotten. "I don't remember that, but the way you say it, like you were there." I was. The admission hung, raw and unvarnished. I picked up the pieces, held you when you couldn't sleep, drove you to therapy in Ballard. We built this life after. His face paled, the pieces slotting wrong. We? As in. The dam cracked. I couldn't stop now, words flooding out like the Duwamish at high tide. 5 years, Elias. Dates in hidden speakeasies. Road trips to the Ho rainforest where we'd lie under the canopy and talk about forever. You proposed redesigning my apartment into our space. Sketched rings on napkins. We were going to Paris next spring. Your treat after the big commission. He stood abruptly, chair scraping. Stop. This is too much. His hands raked through his hair, pacing the kitchen like a caged panther. I need proof, not stories. Proof. Hurt flared hot. The photos, the emails. Hell, the tattoo on your ribcage. The coordinates of the beach where we first said, I love you. 47.6062 N. 122.3321 W. He yanked up his shirt, exposing the ink. Latitude and longitude etched in elegant script, skin still faintly scarred from the fresh needling. His breath hitched, fingers tracing it. This is us. Tears pricked my eyes, unbidden. Yes, God, yes. He collapsed against the counter, sliding down to the floor, knees to chest. I joined him, our shoulders touching in the cool tile expanse. I'm sorry, he whispered, for forgetting, for making you relive it. Don't apologize. I leaned my head against the cabinet, exhaustion settling like dusk. Just let me help you remember. That night we slept in the same bed for the first time since. Not together, but adjacent, a chasm of sheets between us. His breathing evened out beside me, an anchor in the storm, and I lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan's lazy spin, wondering if love could be retrofitted, reinforced against the quake of loss. The next day brought Jordan's dinner, unavoidable. A networking event at the Museum of Flight, all glass and steel evoking Elias's aesthetic. I tagged along as support, my tie feeling like a noose. Jordan was there, impeccably suited, flashing that predator smile as he clapped Elias on the back. Looking good, man. Trauma looks rugged on you. His eyes flicked to me, dismissive. Hayes, still peddling dreams. Still cutting corners? I shot back low enough for only him to hear. Elias, oblivious, dove into shop talk, his animation drawing a crowd. I nursed a gin and tonic in the shadows, watching Jordan lean in too close, hand lingering on Elias's arm. Jealousy coiled, serpentine, but I swallowed it, reminding myself this was reconstruction, not demolition. Later, in the car, Elias turned to me, buzzed from wine and validation. That was good. Felt normal. Normal's overrated. I quipped, but my chest tightened. You deserve extraordinary. He reached across the console, squeezing my hand. Maybe I already have it. The touch lingered, warm and tentative, a foundation stone laid. But as we pulled into the driveway, his phone buzzed again. Jordan. Great seeing you. Let's do the San Juans soon. Just us? Elias silenced it. But the seed was planted, doubt sprouting in the fertile soil of his fractured memory. The following weeks were a dance of progress and pitfalls. Therapy sessions with Dr. Lena Vesquez, a soft-spoken Latina with an office overlooking the locks, yielded glimmers. Hypnotherapy sessions where Elias described flashes, my laugh echoing in an empty theater, hands intertwined under starlit sheets. We'd celebrate small victories with walks along the Burke-Gilman Trail, bikes rented from the stand near Gas Works Park, wind-whipping stories from our lips. One afternoon, amid the rusting skeletons of old gasification tanks, he stopped, turning to me with fierce intensity. Spencer, I think. I feel it. The shape of us. We kissed then, spontaneous as Seattle's summer sunbreaks. Soft at first, exploratory, then deepening with the urgency of rediscovery. His lips tasted of salt and possibility, hands framing my face like a cherished elevation drawing. The world narrowed to that point of contact, 5 years compressed into a single, shattering exhale. But reality intruded as it does. Pulling back, breathless, he searched my eyes. Was it always this good? Better? I lied, because the truth, that it had been a symphony, not just a spark, might overwhelm the fragile score we were composing. Jordan's shadow lengthened. Invites turned to visits. A casual hike in Discovery Park where he regaled Elias with tales of their wild days. Omitting the wreckage, I confronted him one evening after he'd overstayed wine on the deck. Elias inside fetching glasses. Back off. He's not yours to reclaim. Jordan smirked, swirling his Merlot. He's a blank slate, Spencer. And I write better lines than you. The words festered, poisoning the air. That night, Elias dreamed violently. Thrashing, murmuring betrayal like a curse. I held him through it, sweat slicked and shaking, whispering assurances into his hair. By month's end, the firm recalled him part-time, a mercy that thrust him back into the fray. His first day, I waited outside the Belltown high-rise, nerves jangling like loose cabling. He emerged grinning, portfolio under arm. Nailed the pitch. Felt like old times. We celebrated at a hole-in-the-wall in Pioneer Square, dim lights and jazz humming low. Midway through oysters, his foot hooked mine under the table, a silent Morse code of connection. Hope swelled, buoyant as the sound. But as we walked home arm in arm, street lamps casting long shadows, he confessed. Jordan offered me a side gig, consulting on his waterfront project. Says it's a fresh start. The arm slipped from mine. A fresh start? With him. It's business, Spence. And part of me wonders if there's truth in what he says. About us before you. The before gutted me. I stopped under a awning, rain pattering like distant applause. Don't let him rewrite you. You're more than his draft. He cupped my cheek, thumb brushing my lip. I know. But what if the accident didn't just erase you? What if it erased a better version of me, the one who chose wisely? Tears mingled with the drizzle on my face. You did choose me every day. He pulled me close, foreheads touching, breaths sinking in the downpour. Then help me choose again. Winter clamped down on Seattle like a vice, the days shortening to bruised slivers of light, mirroring the eclipse creeping over our fragile rebuild. Elias dove into the consulting gig with Jordan, commuting to the waterfront site where cranes clawed at the sky, erecting luxury slips for superyachts that mocked the working ferries chugging past. He'd come home late, smelling of salt and stress, sketches unfurled across the dining table like battle plans. I'd wait with stew simmering, his nana's recipe, retrieved from a dog-eared cookbook in the pantry, trying to anchor him with domesticity. How was the sight? I'd ask, ladling portions while he shrugged off his coat, the fabric damp from perpetual mist. Intense. Jordan's pushing timelines, but the design's solid. Feels good to be back in the dirt. The double entendre hung, unintended, but it stung. Jordan's influence seeped in like groundwater. New ties and bold patterns, references to our vision that blurred lines between professional and personal. Mia cornered me at a firm happy hour in a Soto brewpub, her voice cutting through the clink of glasses. He's slipping, Spence. Jordan's feeding him half-truths. Says you were just a rebound, that their breakup was mutual bullshit. Rage simmered, but I channeled it into vigilance. Nights we'd lie entwined, his head on my chest, my fingers carding through his hair as he recounted the day. Intimacy bloomed in fits. Lazy mornings where he'd trace the freckles on my shoulders, murmuring mine like a mantra half-remembered. But doubts lingered, shadows in his eyes when my phone buzzed with work texts. The crisis hit on New Year's Eve, the city alive with fireworks that painted the sound in electric blues and golds. We'd planned intimate. A bottle of Prosecco, jazz from the hi-fi, slow dances in the living room where the tree twinkled forgotten in the corner. But Jordan crashed it, uninvited, bearing a bottle of vintage cab and a grin like polished stone. Couldn't let you ring it in without me? He said, breezing past with hugs too tight, eyes daring me to protest. Elias, flushed from the first glass, welcomed it. Come on, Spence. More the merrier. The evening unraveled like cheap tinsel. Jordan dominated, toasting to second chances. His arms slung casual over Elias's chair, Stories flowed, exaggerated tales of their European jaunts, the time they skinny-dipped in Lake Tahoe, laughter booming as if amnesia had canonized them. I sat rigid, Prosecco turning vinegary, interjecting facts Jordan glossed over. The Tahoe fight that ended with Elias alone in a motel, the Europe trip cut short by Jordan's affair. By midnight, as the Space Needle erupted in a finale of sparks, Jordan pulled Elias aside onto the deck, their silhouettes framed against the pyrotechnics. I watched from the window, heart hammering, words lost in the roar. When they returned, Elias's cheeks were rosy, eyes glassy. Jordan says we should collaborate more. A full partnership, his capital, my designs. Partnership. The word echoed, laced with subtext. I stood, code in hand. I'm heading out. Happy New Year. Elias followed me to the door, confusion etching his face. Spence, wait. For what? Him to erase me altogether. The accusation spilled, venomous. He's not your future. He's your ghost. Jordan lounged in the doorway, smirking. Jealousy's ugly, Hayes. Elias deserves options. Options. I whirled on him. You mean manipulation? You broke him once. Don't pretend you won't again. Elias stepped between us, hands raised. Enough. Spencer, you're overreacting. Jordan's just a friend. The dismissal landed like a beam's collapse. I left without another word, the door clicking shut behind me like a final blueprint stamp. The drive to Fremont was a blur, wipers battling flurries that stuck to the glass like accusations. My apartment welcomed me with silence, the bed cold and vast without him. Texts lit my phone. Come back. Let's talk. Then Jordan left. It's you I want here. I powered it off, curling into the duvet, sobs racking me until dawn. Betrayal not from Elias but from the universe, from the accident that handed him to a predator on a silver platter. How could I compete with a version of himself unscarred by our truths? He showed up at noon, snow dusting his coat, eyes red-rimmed. I sent him away. For good. Relief warred with wariness. Why? Because when he kissed me, tried to under the fireworks, it felt wrong, like a design with bad sightlines. He stepped closer, hands framing my face. You, though, even half remembered, you fit. We made love then, urgent and reclaiming, bodies a language of forgiveness. His touches were maps redrawn, hesitant then sure, drawing gasps from me like revised elevations. Afterward, tangled in sheets, he whispered, I choose you. Again. But the fracture lingered, a hairline crack. Work pulled him deeper into Jordan's orbit, site visits stretching to overnights in Tacoma motels. For efficiency. I'd pace my office in the Exchange building, overlooking the ferry terminal, staring at emails from clients while envy gnawed. Mia fed me intel, Jordan's advances, subtle but insistent, preying on Elias's vulnerability. One February night, after a storm that felled branches across the city, he came home hollow. The sights behind. Jordan's pissed. Blames me. He's deflecting, I said, drawing him a bath, eucalyptus steaming the air. You're carrying his shortcuts. In the tub, water lapping his chest, he pulled me to sit on the edge, head resting on my knee. I keep dreaming of the accident. Not the fall, but before, your voice calling my name. Were you there? No. The lie tasted like ash. I'd been in a meeting, oblivious until the call. But I got there fast as I could. He nodded, eyes distant. Feels like I lost more than memory that day. The vulnerability cracked me open. I slid into the tub fully clothed, water soaking through, holding him as steam wreathed us. We'll find it, piece by piece. Spring teased with crocuses pushing through mulch in the community garden, a metaphor I clung to. We joined a queer book club in Capitol Hill, pages of Audre Lorde and James Baldwin binding us to others navigating love's labyrinths. Elias read aloud one evening, his voice steady on lines about radical vulnerability, then set the book aside to kiss me slow, the words lingering like aftertaste. Yet Jordan's betrayal brewed subterranean. I discovered it mid-March, rifling for takeout menus. A hidden folder on Elias's laptop, emails from Jordan, flirtatious at first, then explicit. Remember how we used to celebrate closings? Let's make new memories. Attached. Photos from their past, cropped to exclude pain. Nausea rose, but rage steadied me. I confronted Elias at dawn. Laptop open on the kitchen island. Coffee forgotten. Explain this. His face drained of color, scrolling the thread. It didn't save them. He must have. Bullshit. My voice broke. You kept them. Why? Confusion twisted to guilt. Curiosity? Testing if it sparked anything? Spence, it didn't. Nothing like us. But you entertained it. The betrayal sank deep. A foundation poured wrong. After everything, after I rebuilt you, you let him in. He reached for me, desperate. I'm sorry. It was weakness, not want. I recoiled, grabbing my keys. Weakness is a choice, and you chose wrong. The door slammed, echoing through the neighborhood, waking to birdsong. I drove aimlessly, ending at Alki Beach, waves crashing like unresolved chords. 5 years of devotion, and here I was, adrift on the tide of his half-truths. He found me there hours later, sand gritty under us as we sat, knees drawn up. I deleted it all, blocked him, told the firm I'm out of the project. Relief flickered, but trust was rebar bent. Why should I believe you? Because losing you, again, would erase everything worth remembering. Tears tracked his cheeks, salt mingling with sea spray. You're my structure, Spence. Without you, it's all rubble. We rebuilt slowly, therapy doubling, boundaries redrawn. April brought dogwoods blooming pink against evergreens, and with them, a tentative deepening. Weekend getaways to the San Juans. Not Jordan's haunts, but cabins on Orcas where we hiked to peaks overlooking the archipelago. Hands linked, futures sketched in cloud formations. One evening, as seals barked below, he pulled a small box from his pack. A silver ring, engraved with our coordinates. Not a proposal, not yet, but a promise. To remember, to choose. I slipped it on, the metal cool against fevered skin. Then let's build. But the high tide of doubt receded only to reveal undercurrents. Jordan's final strike came in May. A smear campaign whispered through industry channels. Rumors of Elias's instability, leaks of doctored accident reports pinning blame on him. The firm wavered, projects stalled, and Elias spiraled, nights haunted by what-ifs. I held the line, networking furiously, vouching for him at panels in the convention center. He's the best, I'd say, voice steel. Accidents don't define talent. Through it, our love tempered, forged in crisis. Intimacy evolved, not just physical but psychic. Shared journals where he'd write fragments of recall, me adding annotations like love letters. By summer's solstice, as the sun lingered gold over the sound, we stood on a ferry deck, wind tousling us, rings glinting. I remember the first night, he said suddenly, gripping the rail. Your apartment, rain on the roof, you burning toast and laughing. Joy exploded, bright as the longest day. Progress. But the story wasn't linear. Amnesia's waves crashed unpredictable. A bad day could erase a week's gains, leaving him adrift, me navigating blind. Yet in those troughs we found depth. Conversations raw as exposed beams, vulnerabilities aired like blueprints to the sun. Jordan faded to footnote, his empire of influence crumbling under scrutiny from a whistleblower, Mia, fierce as ever. Elias's firm reinstated him lead on a community center in the Central District, a humane design prioritizing green spaces over glass facades. We broke ground together, hard hats crooked, soil under nails. To new foundations, he toasted with a thermos of coffee. To us, I echoed, heart full. Yet the emotional crest built toward something larger, a storm gathering on the horizon of memory's full return, or its permanent eclipse. Summer unfurled in Seattle like a reluctant bloom, heat waves shimmering off the asphalt of I-5, turning commutes into saunas of impatience. Elias's new project consumed him. The Central District Center, a mosaic of reclaimed brick and living walls, designed to weave community threads in a neighborhood long scarred by redlining's ghosts. He'd vanish into the site trailer for dawn-to-dusk marathons. Emerging sunburned and exhilarated, blueprints rolled under his arm like victory flags. I'd join him when I could, slipping away from Cascade Media's air-conditioned grind to bring sandwiches from Piroshki House, watching as he directed crews with that innate command, voice carrying over the whine of saws. There, curve the entryway softer, invite the light. He'd call, and the world bent to his vision, much as it had bent mine 5 years prior. Our evenings were respites. Barbecues on the deck with neighbors. Queer couples from the hill, their stories a chorus of resilience. One night, under strings of Edison bulbs, Theo and Marcus shared their own amnesia tale. Marcus's stroke 3 years back, piecing love from photo albums and patience. It's not recovery, Theo said, clinking bottles. It's reinvention. Elias squeezed my hand under the table, a silent vow. Later, in bed, he traced my spine with feather-light touches. Reinventing suits us. But reinvention's underbelly was exhaustion. My own work faltered, campaigns pitched half-hearted, deadlines missed as I played sentinel to his recalls. Dr. Vasquez noticed in session, her office now a sanctuary of potted ferns and Puget views. You're codependent, Spencer. His healing can't be your soul scaffold. The words burrowed, festering. Was I holding or hindering? Nights alone in the apartment, while he crashed at the site. I'd scroll old texts, his love you more a bomb and barb. The turning point came in July, a heat dome baking the city, AC units groaning in unison. Elias woke from a nightmare-drenched, sheets twisted like failed trusses. It was the accident, he gasped, clutching me. But you were there, falling with me. I held him, murmuring nonsense until his breaths evened. Just a dream. No. He sat up, eyes wild. Details, your shirt, blue plaid, the way the beam groaned. I saw it. Chill despite the humidity. You couldn't have. I wasn't. Under hypnosis. Dr. Vasquez pushed deeper. He fumbled for his journal, scribbling furiously. It's coming back. In waves. Elation surged, but laced with dread. Full recall meant confronting the unvarnished us. The fights over his workaholism, my insecurities flaring after a client's betrayal. The night he confessed Jordan's shadow still lingered pre-accident, testing our steel. We accelerated therapy, sessions tripling, hypnotherapy delving into the abyss. Glimpses emerged. Our first fight, me storming out after he missed my birthday for a deadline. Reconciliation in the rain-slicked Audi. Laughter followed tears, intimacy reigniting with fresh fervor. Sex not just reclamation, but revelation. Bodies speaking dialects lost and found. Yet the waves crested turbulent. One session, he recalled the proposal. Not the ring, but the night on the ferry, knees knocking as he stammered, "Marry me?" Amid tourists and gulls. Joy lit him, but crashed into the void. I remember saying it, but not your answer. You said yes, I whispered, throat tight, dancing under the stars, promising forever. He pulled me close in the office, Dr. Vasquez excusing herself discreetly. Then let's make it real. The question hung, a beam awaiting placement. I nodded, heart soaring. Yes, again. Planning became our new blueprint. A small ceremony in the Olympics, just us and witnesses. Mia as best woman. My sister Claire from Portland. Venue hunts turned adventures. Cabins in Hurricane Ridge, meadows in Solduc, each site a story waiting. But conflict brewed external. The center project hit snag. Budget overruns from supply chain snarls. Council pushback from developers eyeing the lot for condos. Jordan, sidelined but spiteful, lobbied anonymously. His fingerprints in the opposition letters. Elias unraveled, snapping at crews, retreating to the study for solitary benders over whiskey and elevations. It's tainted. He confessed one night, glass trembling. Like me, half-built, prone to collapse. You're solid, I insisted, prying the bottle away. We'll reinforce. But his doubt infected us. Intimacy waned. Touches turned perfunctory, conversations clipped. I poured energy into work, landing a major contract for a queer-owned tech firm. Pitches infused with our story's grit. Success buoyed me but highlighted the imbalance. His world contracting, mine expanding. The breaking storm hit in August, a rare thunderstorm rumbling over the sound, lightning fracturing the skyline. Elias stormed in mid-deluge, soaked and seething. A council denial letter crumpled in his fist. They killed it. Jordan's doing. Pulled strings with his donor pals. Rage mirrored his. We'll fight. Appeals, media. No. He slammed the paper down. I'm done fighting ghosts, including mine. The words halted me. What does that mean? He paced, water pooling at his feet. The memories, they're poison. Every recall drags up the accident, the pain, the what-ifs. With Jordan, at least it's clean slate. Betrayal reignited. Fiercer. Clean? He's the contamination. Stop projecting. His voice cracked, thunder echoing. You act like my savior, but maybe I need space to fail on my own. The room spun, hurt crystallizing. Space? After I gave everything. You gave out of guilt for not being there that day. The accusation landed, unearthed from therapy depths. I feel it, Spencer. Your pity, masking possession. I reeled, grabbing my jacket. Pity? That's love, you bastard. Raw, unfiltered. The door banged shut, rain swallowing my sobs as I fled to the car. Fremont's trolls leered in the downpour, concrete witnesses to my unraveling. I crashed at Claire's and Ballard, her spare room a cocoon of quilts and chamomile, her hugs the only structure holding me. Days blurred. Voicemails from Elias, pleas laced with recall fragments. I remember the ring, your smile. Ignored in my fury. Mia mediated, texts bridging, he's a mess. Therapy breakthrough, full accident memory. You were the first face he saw. Guilt twisted anew. I returned after a week, finding the house dim. Him curled on the couch, journal open to a sketch. Us intertwined, labeled foundation. Forgive me, he rasped, voice wrecked. The storm, fear talking. I remembered it all. The fall, the pain, waking to strangers. But clearest, you, holding my hand, whispering fight. Tears streamed, mutual. I knelt, forehead to his. I was terrified of losing you. You didn't. His fingers laced mine. And I won't lose us. Reconciliation was seismic. Nights of unburdening. Memories poured like concrete, setting hard. We scrapped the center fight, pivoting to a non-profit pitch. Mia co-leading, turning loss to legacy. Fall gilded the edges, equinox bringing balance. Wedding plans solidified. Vows under maples in Discovery Park. Rings exchanged with Cascadian quartz inlays. Rehearsal dinner at a Fremont brewery. Laughter flowing freer than ale. But crisis loomed, subtle, a doctor's check. MRIs showing scar tissue growth, potential for seizures. Manageable, Dr. Vasquez assured, but the shadow lengthened. Elias faced it head-on, designing safeguards into our life. Emergency protocols pinned by the bed, adventures tempered but not tamed. We're seismic retrofit, he joked, kissing my temple. Built to sway, not shatter. Intimacy deepened, touches reverent, each a affirmation against impermanence. One night, as Aurora whispers danced faint over the sound, he made love to me slow, eyes locked, murmuring recalls like litanies. The Thai place on Broadway, your terrible karaoke, the way you fit against me on the couch. Ecstasy crested not in release, but release of fears held too long. Yet the arc bent toward climax. November winds held presage, and Jordan's final gambit struck. A lawsuit, alleging Elias's impaired judgment post-accident voided their contract, seeking damages to cripple him. The news hit like a gale, Elias blanching over breakfast. He won't stop. We will. Resolve steeled us. Lawyers enlisted, pro bono from a queer legal collective in Pioneer Square. Depositions dredging the past. Jordan's manipulations, the cheating, the accident's true fault. Publicity swirled. Local press picking up the thread. Architect's amnesia battle. Love versus legacy. Elias emerged phoenix-like. Op-eds in The Stranger decrying corporate predation. Rallies at City Hall with queer activists chanting for equity. Through it, our bond fortified, court dates as dates, him sketching in margins of briefs, me pitching media angles over coffee. Victory came swift. Settlement, Jordan's retraction, the center revived with city backing. Elation peaked in December. Solstice bonfire on the beach at Golden Gardens. Flames leaping as we burned effigies of doubts. Paper Jordan, scribbled fears. To light, Elias toasted, pulling me close. To us, I replied, the pyre's glow etching our faces eternal. But healing's path wound treacherous still. The accidents echo a low rumble beneath. December's chill etched frost patterns on the windows, turning our queen and perch into a snow globe shaken by fate's indifferent hand. The lawsuit's dust settled like fine powder, leaving Elias buoyant, press junkets in sleek studios overlooking the market, interviews where he'd credit Love's architecture for his resilience. I watched from the sidelines, pride swelling alongside a quiet unease, the ring on my finger a talisman against the unknown. Wedding fever gripped us, invitations etched on recycled paper, RSVPs trickling in like promises kept. Claire arrived early, her Portland energy a whirlwind of tulle and toasts, commandeering the kitchen for rehearsal feasts. You two are endgame, she'd say, hugging Elias fierce, her acceptance a bridge over the chasm his family hadn't crossed. His parents, staid Italian-Americans in Tacoma, still grappling with their son's lifestyle. We countered with chosen family. Mia's toast at the dinner, bawdy and brilliant, roasting Jordan as the human equivalent of a load-bearing wall with termites. Laughter cascaded, glasses clinking like wind chimes in the breeze off the sound. The ceremony dawned crystalline, Discovery Park blanketed in hoarfrost, Maple's skeletal sentinels under a sky of hammered tin. I waited at the altar, a simple arch of evergreens, heart thundering as bagpipes keened low, a nod to his nana's heritage. Elias appeared on the path, while coat shed to reveal a tailored gray suit that hugged his frame like a second skin. Mia arm in arm, her grin conspiratorial. Vows exchanged in the hush, mine, halting with emotion. You drew me into your blueprint, Elias, lines of laughter and storm. I choose the elevations, the shadows, all. His, steady as rebar. Spencer, you were my unseen foundation, holding when I forgot. I build with you, forever. Rings slid home, quartz catching light like captured stars. And the kiss, deep, unhurried, sealed it amid cheers and confetti of dried lavender. The reception sprawled on blankets, craft beers flowing, stories weaving us tighter. Theo recounting Marcus's proposal mid-stroke recovery. A queer elder from the club, sharing 1970s raids dodged. Night fell velvet, bonfire crackling as we danced barefoot, earth cool underfoot. Elias pulled me close, breath warm on my neck. Husband, he murmured, the word a cornerstone. But joy's mortar cracked subtle. Honeymoon plans, Bainbridge cabins, ferries to the peninsulas, halted by a seizure's specter. The first hit post-vows, innocuous. A twitch in his hand during cake cutting, written off as fatigue. But the second, 2 weeks later, was cataclysm. We were in the Cascades, snowshoeing near Stevens Pass, pines heavy with powder. Laughter echoed as we crested a ridge, views unfolding to jagged peaks. Then, his stumble, eyes glazing, body convulsing against the snow like a structure buckling. Panic seized me, phone fumbling for signal, dialing 911 amid his gasps. Elias, stay with me. Paramedics airlifted him, rotors thumping like a dirge, me clutching his glove in the chopper's roar. Harbor view again, irony bitter as the antiseptic sting. Scans confirmed, scar tissue inflamed, seizures a new fault line. Meds adjusted, prognosis guarded. Manageable with vigilance, the neurologist said, but her eyes held caveats. Elias woke combative, monitors beeping accusation. Not again. Not this cage. I stroked his hand, voice anchor. We're in it together. Discharge brought homebound haze, restrictions on driving, heights, stress. The center project paused, his role advisory from the trailer, frustration etching lines deeper than the scar. Nights, he'd pace the deck, staring at the Olympics as if they mocked his clipped wings. Our marriage, fresh minted, weathered the strain. Intimacy shifted, gentle explorations, reassurances whispered in the dark. You're still you, I'd say, tracing his jaw. Seizures don't redraw the man, but doubt gnawed him. What if they erase more? What if I forget the vows, the yes? Then we'll renew, daily. My promise etched in touch. External pressures mounted. The press, once ally, turned voyeuristic. Headlines in Seattle Weekly. Amnesiac architect's seizure scare? Is love enough? Speculating on our troubled union. Trolls online dissected our story. Queerness a punchline in comments. Worse, his parents descended, concern veiling judgment. Maria DeLuca, apron strings to Tacoma, bustled in with lasagnas and lectures. You need rest, Figlio, not this. Lifestyle stress. Her eyes flicked to me, implication clear. The gay husband, the trigger. Elias bristled, defending fierce. Spencer's my stability, ma. The accident, the seizures, they're not his fault. Tensions simmered, dinners devolving to silences broken by clinking forks. I endured, for him, but the othering wore thin, a slow erosion. Claire sensed it, pulling me aside during a family walk along the locks. You're carrying the load solo. Let him shoulder some. Her words ignited confrontation. One evening, as Maria fretted over pill schedules, I snapped, he's a husband, not a patient. Back off. The room froze, Elias's eyes flashing gratitude and guilt. Maria retreated, tearful, but boundaries held. Parents decamped to a hotel, visits scheduled. Healing's arc twisted inward. Elias channeled fury into art. A series of installations for the center, sculptures of twisted metal and memory boards, interactive where visitors pinned forgotten moments on communal walls. Opening night in the half-built space, under strung lights, he spoke, "Loss isn't erasure. It's invitation to rebuild communal." Crowds swelled, queer artists and activists mingling. Our story abstracted into something universal. Pride swelled in me, watching him command the room, vulnerability his strongest line. But personal crisis crested private. A major seizure struck mid-January, during a rare solo errand, coffee run to Vivace, collapsing on the sidewalk, strangers forming a circle of concern. 911, ambulance lights strobing Broadway, me racing from a meeting to find him dazed in the ER, barista's statements painting pity. Humiliation cloaked him post-release. Can't even get caffeine without catastrophe. You're alive, I countered, but the weight pressed us both. Therapy evolved, couple sessions with a specialist in neuroqueer dynamics, Dr. Reyes, a non-binary healer with tattoos of neural maps. We unpacked the savior complex, my codependence a beam I'd overlooked. Let him fall, Dr. Reyes urged. Catch only when asked. Elias embraced it, reclaiming agency. Yoga at dawn in the park, sketching unbound, even a solo exhibit pitched to galleries in Pioneer Square. Romance rekindled in margins. A surprise picnic at Cary Park, skyline vista our backdrop, prosciutto and figs devoured with wine. To falls and rises, he toasted, pulling me onto the blanket. Laughter bubbled, free. To us, unbreakable. But the emotional zenith built inexorably. February brought anniversary of the accident, marking not with dread, but ritual. A drive to the site, now a thriving office tower, his designs intact. We stood where the beam fell, hands clasped, wind whispering through scaffolding ghosts. I remember it all now, he said, voice steady. The crack, the drop, your face in the ambulance. Love amid chaos. Tears froze on my lashes. And I'd do it again. The moment crystallized, but fate's hand intruded. Test results post-seizure. Tissue growth aggressive. Surgery a possibility. High risk. The surgeon outlined, diagram stark. Memory trade-offs possible. Elias paled, grip bruising mine. Lose more? After clawing it back. Options weighed. Operate, risk regression. Wait, court escalation. Nights dissolved into debates. Fears voiced raw. Me confessing terror of widowhood. Him admitting dread of dependency. Decision crystallized in crisis. Another cluster of seizures, leaving him bedbound, hallucinations flickering, ghosts of Jordan, accusations of weakness. I sat vigil, cool cloths and calm, but inside, terror raged. In the haze he seized my hand. Surgery. For us, for the life we build. Relief crashed, mingled with grief. Prep began. Scans, consents, my power of attorney signed with trembling hand. The eve we lay entwined, bodies a bulwark. If I forget again, he whispered, love me like the first time. Always, I vowed, kiss sealing the pact. Dawn broke surgical, me pacing pre-op halls, coffee cold in styrofoam. Hours stretched eternal. Dr. Vasquez's texts a lifeline, he's strong. Emergence. Groggy, bandaged, but eyes, those deep brown anchors, found mine immediate. Spence, I'm here, heart suspended. A beat, husband. Relief sobbed out, nurses discreet. Recovery loomed arduous. Rehab, therapies renewed, but the core held. Memory intact, seizures quelled. Spring heralded rebirth. Center groundbreaking anew, our hands first in the dirt. Elias designed expansions, neurodiverse spaces, memory gardens for queer elders. Our love, tempered in fire, emerged luminous. Anniversaries marked with sketches, travels paced but profound. A train to Vancouver, border crossing as metaphor. Yet the arc's peak whispered warning. Full healing illusory, life's quakes perpetual. In that truth we found profundity. Love not in perfection, but persistence. Spring's thaw melted Seattle's carapace, revealing tulip fields in the Skagit Valley that we toured by rail. The bloom a riot of color against muddied fields. Elias's recovery progressed in measured strides. Physical therapy in the U District's Aquatic Center, where warm pools buoyed his limbs like forgiving drafts. Cognitive drills that layered new recalls atop old, weaving a tapestry denser than before. He threw himself into the center's evolution, now dubbed Resilient Roots. A queer community hub with therapy pods modeled on neural pathways, art walls for survivor stories. Funding poured in post-surgery buzz, donors drawn to his narrative. The architect who rebuilt himself brick by neural brick. I balanced it with my own ascent at Cascade. Promoted to VP, helming a campaign for neurotech startups. Irony not lost. Pitches infused our truth. Ads of brains as cities. Loves as load-bearing loves. Going viral. Billboards overlooking I-90 proclaiming memory isn't lost. It's redesigned. Evenings, we debrief over dinners at Salumi. Cured meets a charcuterie of conquests. Today's win, he'd say, spearing prosciutto. 3 clients pledged for the garden. Mine's snagging that TEDx slot for you, I'd counter, clinking forks. Banter flowed easy, scars fading to stories. But undercurrents stirred. Elias's parents, softened by the wedding's grace, visited more. Maria's marinara a peace offering. His father's gruff nods evolving to questions on designs. Solid work, son. Vito grunted once, clapping Elias's shoulder. A milestone mending old rifts. Queer family expanded. Book club morphing to a support circle. Monthly potlucks at Gasworks where we'd share seizure protocols alongside salads. Theo and Marcus mentored, their longevity a beacon. 20 years post-stroke, Marcus quipped, and Theo still forgets anniversaries. Laughter healed, but privately shadows lingered. Elias woke some nights, sweat slicked, grasping for names. Mine ours, as if surgery's scalpel nicked deeper. What if it regresses? He'd murmur. My reassurances a nightly liturgy. We countered with rituals. Morning journals exchanged over espresso, entries like love notes. Today, I remember your laugh in the rain. Affirmations stacking like sandbags against floods. Summer simmered tensions external. Jordan's specter resurfaced. Not vengeful, but vanquished. News of his firm's collapse. Ethics probe exposing embezzlement. Schadenfreude soured quick. Elias, ever the builder, mused. Pity him. Cracks unchecked crumble empires. Empathy became our ethos, extending to self. Dr. Reyes guided us through forgiveness arcs. Me releasing Savior's grip, him embracing vulnerability as strength. Couples retreats in the San Juans honed it. Kayaking Foggy Bay, paddles dipping syncopated, evenings in Adirondack stargazing, constellations redrawn as our mythos. Intimacy flourished unbound. Lazy Sundays in sheets, explorations languid, his hands charting me anew each time. You're my favorite design, he'd whisper, lips brushing collarbone, eliciting shivers that spoke volumes. The climax brewed in ambition's fire. Elias pitched eco structures, a firm branch for adaptive architecture, buildings for the neurologically diverse, flexible layouts, sensory gardens. Backers circled, but skepticism loomed. Investors wary of the amnesiac's folly. We tag-teamed, me crafting pitches with emotional heft, him demoing models in boardrooms overlooking Elliott Bay. Rejection stung, too niche, risky profile, but persistence paid. A seed grant from a tech philanthropist, queer and visionary. Launch party at the center's soft opening, September's harvest moon gilding the space. Living walls blooming, memory boards pinned with hopes. Speeches soared, Elias's, voice resonant. We design not for perfection, but possibility. Spaces where falls become foundations. Crowd thundered approval, toasts to resilience. Amid mingling, a donor pulled me aside. Your story, in the ads, the op-eds, it's gold. But off-record, watch the hero worship. Marriages crack under spotlights. Caution noted, but joy prevailed. Dancing under lanterns, Elias spun me, breath hitching. This, us, it's the structure that holds. Fall deepened hues, equinox walks along the locks, salmon leaping upstream as metaphor. But crisis shadowed. A minor seizure during a sight walk, tremor in his hand scattering blueprints. No collapse, but reminder stark. Meds tweaked, schedules eased. Elias internalized it, withdrawing subtle. Longer hours, shorter affections. Don't want a burden, he'd say, deflecting hugs. The rift widened, unspoken. I confronted over cider at a Capitol Hill taproom. Amber liquid swirling like doubts. Burden? You're my husband, not baggage. His eyes, shadowed, met mine. Surgery bought time, not immunity. What if I drag you down? Then we descend together. Passion flared, words tumbling. The accident's echo, my fears of loss, his guilt over stealing my youth. 32 to his 37, but miles apart in where. Catharsis crested tearful. Pubs hum fading as we clung. Truths bared like elevations stripped. I need you whole, I confessed. Not fixed, human. He nodded, resolve cracking. Then let's human it. Recommitment followed. Date nights enforced. Ferry rides to Bainbridge. Picnics with no agendas. Vulnerability bloomed, him admitting seizure shame, me voicing promotion's isolation. Success a solitary summit. Thanksgiving gathered us. Claire, Mia, parents tentative at the table laden with turkey and tamales. Toast skirted scars, focusing futures. Echo's first contract, a memory care wing for a Seattle nonprofit. Winter whispered warnings, solstice bonfire at Golden Gardens, flames devouring effigies of fears. But deeper conflict stirred internal. Elias's recall, once ally, turned adversary. Full restoration unearthed buried pains. Not just ours, but Prius. Childhood suppressions, coming out's fallout, Jordan's gaslighting etched deeper than admitted. Nights, he'd journal feverishly, pages filling with rage at his younger self. Why did I stay? Triggering spirals. I'd find him on the deck, staring at void, whiskey half gone. One blizzard night it erupted. I remembered the cheating. Not details, but the doubt it planted. Made me question us even now. Hurt lanced. And fear. That I'm wired wrong. Unfaithful by nature. Absurdity sparked anger. You're not Jordan. You're the man who chose me. Post-erasure, post-storms. Debate raged, snow-muffling shouts, until exhaustion yielded embrace. Therapy, we agreed, Dr. Reyes doubling sessions. Healing's churn intensified. Group for survivors, Elias sharing platform, voice cracking on betrayal's blueprint. Bonds formed, peers swapping strategies, potlucks turning confessional. By New Year's, catharsis peaked. A vow renewal, impromptu on the deck, fireworks over the needle our witness. I choose the flawed lines, he said, ring twisting. The you, the me, unpolished. Joy crested, but arcs bend hinted tragedy's veil. Life's impermanence. Love's fragility amid quakes. Echo launched triumphant. First build a pavilion in Volunteer Park. Curves inviting repose. Opening drew crowds. Press lauding resilient romance. Yet subtle shifts, Elias tiring faster. Med side effects blurring edges. Checkups clean, but intuition prickled. The emotional nadir approached. A low not in loss, but limitation. Realizing full cure myth. Embracing chronicity as chapter, not end. In that profundity rooted, love as ongoing build, revisions eternal. The new year dawned with uncharacteristic sun, gilding the sound in liquid gold. A brief amnesty from the gray that defined our city and, at times, our souls. Echo structures gained momentum, subcontracts stacking like cordwood. Adaptive playgrounds in Beacon Hill, sensory suites for a Bellevue clinic. Elias helmed it with renewed vigor. His limp a mere echo, surgery's legacy a faint hum rather than roar. We settled into marriage's middle cantos. Less fireworks, more hearth. Sunday markets at Ballard, arm in arm amid stalls of heirloom apples and handmade soaps. Evenings with podcasts on urban planning, debating merits of density over sprawl. Intimacy wove domestic. Him cooking carbonara shirtless. Me sneaking kisses mid-stir. Flower dusting cheeks like abstract art. But the understory thickened with life's quiet insurrections. My promotion's glamour faded to grind. Travel to LA for client schmoozes. Returning jet-lagged to Elias's knowing hugs. Missed your chaos, he'd murmur, pulling me earthward. His seizures, tamed but tenacious, punctuated routine. A petit mal during a client lunch, fork pausing midair, colleagues' awkward pauses bridged by his wry brains just buffering. Humor armored him, but privately, frustration frayed edges. Therapy sustained us, Dr. Reyes evolving to life coach, workshops on neuroqueer futurity, envisioning beyond pathology. We hosted one at the center, circle of chairs under living walls, voices layering like polyphony. Stories of disabled loves thriving, not surviving. External harmonies tuned. Parents' acceptance bloomed tentative. Vito co-designing a Tacoma community garden. Maria knitting scarves in pride colors. Claire's visits brought levity. Her and Mia's banter a double helix of wit. Yet, the arc's climax crested in betrayal's aftershock. Not Jordan's, but self-inflicted. Spring unearthed Elias's hidden vice. Whiskey binges post-bad days. Bottles stashed in the study like shameful sketches. I'd find him slumped over drafts, eyes bloodshot, just unwinding. Concern escalated to confrontation after a near miss. Driving home buzzed, swerving on Aurora. This ends, I demanded in the kitchen, keys confiscated. Or it ends us. Guilt ravaged him, tears carving tracks. It's the fear losing control again, dulling the edges. We pivoted, AA meetings in church basements, sober sponsors from the circle. Sobriety's clarity sharpened memories, but amplified pains. Recalls of pre-accident ruts. Our loves near dissolve under work's weight. Crisis peaked in May. Echo's gala fundraiser at the Museum of History and Industry. Elegant sprawl of artifacts and ambition. Elias keynote, suit crisp, voice soaring on designing durability. Love in the load. Applause thundered, but backstage, panic seized. Aura flickering, vision tunneling to seizure's brink. I caught him in the wings, guiding to a quiet alcove amid vintage trains. Breathe, Ground yourself. Meds swallowed dry, episode averted, but vulnerability exposed. Donors whispered, investors hedged. Humiliation cloaked the triumph. Homeward, he shattered. I'm the fraud, preaching resilience while crumbling. No, I cupped his face, fierce. You're human. That's the design. The breakdown cascaded. Therapy intensives. Sabbatical from Echo Mia captaining interim. Days blurred in cocooning. Hikes in Issaquah Alps, no deadlines. Readings of Baldwin aloud. His words on love's labor are gospel. Healing's nadir birthed breakthrough. Elias's memoir pitch. Blueprints of forgetting. Raw essays on amnesia, queerness, rebuild. Publisher bites, Seattle-based, queer-led. Writing became exorcism, pages purging poisons. Summer solstice marked pivot. Release party at the center. Books stacked like totems. Readings drawing 100 queer icons, neurodiverse allies. Elias's voice, steady, closed. Forgetting taught me. Love isn't memory's archive, but heart's archive. Felt, not filed. Tears communal, hugs a web. Post-event on the roof deck under wheeling gulls, he turned to me. You carried me here. We carried, I corrected, ring glinting. Fall's palette deepened resolve. Echo's pavilion opened, curves cradling bodies in repose, memory garden blooming with inscribed stones. Choose again, fall forward, dedication ceremony, us cutting ribbon, flashes popping like affirmations. But the arc's tragic undercurrent surfaced poignant. Vito's diagnosis, early dementia, irony's cruel mirror. Elias flew to Tacoma weekly, designs for adaptive home mods, holding his father's hand through confusions. Like father, like son, Vito rasped once, grip fierce. You built better. Grief tempered us. Maria's stoicism cracking in our kitchen, sobs over espresso. How do you endure? Each other, Elias said, simple. Winter solstice bonfire, golden gardens again, flames devouring year's detritus. Vows whispered anew. Through quakes and calms, the end neared not enclosure, but continuum, life's narrative unfinished. Love its enduring line. Echo thrived. My campaigns echoed its ethos. Our home a haven of half-finished sketches and half-read books. One April dawn, 5 years post-accident, Elias woke me with coffee and a blueprint. Our addition, a studio wing, light flooded for creation. For the family we'll build, he said, hand on my abdomen. Not literal, but aspirative, adoption whispers long harbored. Joy crested, tears salt-sweet. Yes, in that, humaneness distilled. Love not erasure-proof, but resilient, rewritten daily, in rain or reveal. We, architects of each other, drafting tomorrows amid the ever-present now. The journey scarred, but sanctified, proof that from collapse comes cathedral, from forget comes fierce remember.